So you might have heard the term AI kind of buzzing around there in our world today. And what the heck is AI? And is there any use for us to capitalize on that in the ministry of Celebrate Recovery? Are there ways that we can use AI to help be more effective in getting the word out and an overall experience of Celebrate Recovery for those that are seeking help in healing from their hurts, hangups, and habits? Today, we're going to explore what AI is and how it can become really a marketing tool to help us get the word out about Celebrate Recovery. Welcome to Celebrate Recovery Official, a podcast that shares life-change stories, courage, and hope, leadership wisdom, all centered around Matthew chapter 5, and the Beatitudes and the Celebrate Recovery principles, where Jesus gives us some incredible tools to help us face our hurts from the events in our life that can leave havoc on these nasty hang-up core beliefs of how we see ourselves, God, and others, and even our circumstances that inevitably will take us to a space of some nasty habits and some defenses and protections that cause a cost on our relationships with God and others, and to help us find healing through Jesus Christ. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with drugs and alcohol and perfectionism. My name is Rodney. I'm the Global Field Director with Celebrate Recovery. And as always, so good to be back with you. Love the ideas coming in, the feedback that you're giving us. It's given us some good topics to cover and having some good feedback. Thanks for giving us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps us to reach more people. It's just the way it works, and we appreciate you taking a couple minutes to help us wherever you listen, including YouTube. We're grateful for you being a part of this. But speaking of ideas and things that we can be talking about, I met a young lady at one of our conferences, and actually it may have been the summit. I don't know if it was, it was a summit. And we were talking about the podcast and learned a little bit about her, and she has she's a communications director at her church in Connecticut, Middlefield, Connecticut, where she's a part of a Celebrate Recovery there at Victory Celebrate Recovery. They're 19 years old, praise God. They meet every Wednesday at 6:30. And she was just kind of letting me know about AI. And, you should talk about that. And it got my wheels turning and thought, you know what, we need to get you on the podcast. And here we are. Shannon has agreed to jump onto our podcast. So Shannon, welcome. Glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Rodney. Hello, everybody. As he said, Shannon, I'm a grateful believer and I battle control issues, and I'm currently working on the effects of some childhood trauma.
Yeah, so glad you're here, Shannon. So, man, we were talking off air, kind of setting up our time. I really think I'm probably going to get the most out of this conversation, but I know our listeners are, and so, we're just talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and how do we use this tool that pretty much everyone is using now? Could we take something and use it for something like Ministry of Celebrate Recovery? But you're, like I mentioned earlier, you're the communications director there at your church. I love we don't have to get into great detail, but just thinking about your experience coming into Celebrate Recovery with your creative lens and what you were experiencing, where, we're not talking bad about anybody. We're just being honest about where we were, and it's good for all of us to hear this. But how did you kind of get into this arena with even thinking creatively about AI and Celebrate Recovery? What did that look like in your story and journey?
So that's such an interesting experience. I'll say I fell into it out of sheer curiosity. I have a marketing background, and when I was a consultant, my favorite quote that was on the back of my business card was "Change before you have to." And I started hearing that buzzword of AI and what that looks like. So I just kind of started exploring, and now it's everywhere, and you can't avoid it. So I just started kind of noodling around with how it could look in Celebrate Recovery, and honestly, my daily job at the church. And how could it be my assistant to make my life easier?
I love that. So you came in And we see this. I mean, I know when I came in almost 20 years ago, there was some things that, they had been going a few years, and this is, I'm a ministry leader as well, and sometimes we kind of get into this rut, right? This is the way we've always done it. This is the way it's always looked, and sometimes, if we're being honest, we can have that new set of eyes come in, and in this case, you kind of were, and we look at it and go, oh, things are not quite as fresh as we thought they were in my own mind. And it's always scary as a ministry leader, because it's like you don't want someone to kind of shake the cart, right? But to have that fresh set of eyes, and you were that fresh set of eyes coming into your Celebrate Recovery there locally, and notice just some things that, hey, maybe we do this, maybe we freshen some things up. And that's kind of the lens that we're going to in this conversation. Is we've always gotten the word out, and we call it Principle 8 work, through our words and our deeds, getting the word out. And then you come in and say, hey, have you considered trying this? Maybe we've always just done flyers or business cards, and nothing wrong with those kind of strategies. But are there new ways that we could freshen up? Ultimately, the end goal is to get more people to hear about this incredible ministry. And so I think that's just a good context, just thinking about your lens coming into Celebrate Recovery. I don't know if there's anything you want to speak into that or not, but I just wanted to make that point that your fresh eyes coming in at least was able to acknowledge, hey, there's some things maybe I would maybe think about or consider maybe doing differently, that maybe it looks a little bit stale and dated. Is that a fair way to say that?
Absolutely, a generously fair way to say that. When I came into my CR, first of all, just a shout out to my leaders for that. Pastor Randy and Nancy, they are of an older generation, but they are not afraid to say, sure, go ahead and try that. So just thank you for their flexible, teachable hearts. And that's so key in leadership position. But they had been doing it, I think, at 16 years at that point, and just kind of using the material that they had gotten, I'll say, in their launch kit from another ministry director.
Right.
So seeing a 1990s PowerPoint was painful to me, actually on my inventory. So it was great to just kind of come in and say, hey, let's keep with the DNA, obviously, but let's infuse it with our personality. We're a little more conversational. We're a little more dynamic than just the black and white scripting. So we took actually used AI and inspiration from the Holy Spirit and from Rodney's introduction on his podcast, and came up with a new opener, kind of mashed it all together and said, okay, how do we make this talk about, hey, we recognize that your struggles are real, that you have broken relationships. And for the newcomer walking in, we really shifted the focus to them and addressed what this meeting is going to look like. And it's going to be weird and uncomfortable, but stick with it. And that was kind of a lot from your introduction in this podcast. And we made it a little more victory centric in there. But
Love it.
yeah, you have to be flexible and say yes, and, course correct when you need to, but you got to try.
I love that. Well, and kudos, you said it, but I just want to, piggyback on that. Kudos to your leaders for being open-handed. It's easy to kind of become territorial, and I've been guilty of that as a ministry leader in my 20th year. It's easy to kind of fall into that. So it's a good encouragement, staying flexible. And you come in, the younger generation. I learned a long time ago not to ask a woman how old they are, but you're obviously a younger generation, and bring in a fresh, different lens. Doesn't mean that the old lens is bad. It's just a different lens. And how do we take these two lenses and put them together to reach the same goal that we have, right?
Most of that is true. I am much older than I sound, so I am I cringe at all the new Gen Z sayings that are coming out about like Skibbity Ohio, Riz, whatever. I'm old enough now to be like, no, I'm too old to learn something new. I'm right in the middle.
If you need help with that, I can help you with that. I speak that all the time. So,
Thank
no.
you very much.
Now I know a few words, probably use them inappropriately, and that's not good. But, well, let's jump in because like I said, I'm excited about this conversation, and we were kind of just talking through what we wanted to discuss, and this could very well end up being 2 episodes. I'm guessing it might actually turn out that way, but I wanted to jump in kind of that, 16, 19 years, you're 1 year old, 2 year, 5 year, wherever you are in the journey. I have a Celebrate Recovery and it's going. Now what? When I ask that question, how does that hit your heart and what comes to mind there?
So, yeah, it's definitely, I think, overwhelming. Like you said, I have a CR, now what? And my background is in communications and marketing. So, the first thing I want to say to the people who are asking that question is start where you are.
Mm,
You know, Pastor Johnny had said at the recent summit, there's no such thing as a small CR.
yeah.
And I think we get tangled around well, I'm not super huge or I don't really know what to do. So the first thing is just start where you are and where you can be kind of, I'll say, in a free space, which is Facebook and Instagram.
Mm,
Start there. People won't know about your Celebrate Recovery just because, right?
yep.
You have to have some sort of web presence. So Facebook and Instagram are a great place to start. They have free tools using it's called the Meta Business Suite. It's the business side of Facebook and Instagram, which are owned by the same company. So you can schedule out posts. You can really focus on what's happening inside of your CR. And I'm going to use a fancy term. It's called SEO, which is just search engine optimization. It puts you in a digital footprint. So when somebody goes to Google and maybe they've heard about Celebrate Recovery, or they're looking for a recovery program, or they type in Christian recovery,
Mm,
your posts are actually going to show up. So the more you show up in that space, people are going to find you. So just starting there, creating posts about when your meetings are, if you're having a lesson or a testimony that night, what that looks like, and how people can get in contact with you.
mm. So let me lean into that search engine. Is it optimization or what's the O in it? Okay.
Yes.
So the SEO, what does that look like? Does that mean when I'm posting something, I'm making sure I'm using hashtags, or how am I increasing that engine optimization? What does that look like practically? What am I doing?
Sure. So it's actually two different things that you're doing. It's creating keywords. Google likes to just use keywords, but they use really everyday language. So when you go to Google, you don't type in recovery plus Christian plus
Mm,
Connecticut in this example. You would look up Christian recovery in Connecticut. So doing posts that have kind of that verbiage, things that people would be looking for, naturally kind of pushes you into Google and them finding you. But on the social media side, absolutely hashtags are still a viable strategy, because when people are searching for search words like recovery, even 12 steps, or flat out celebrate recovery if they've
mhm.
heard about it, it's great to have those hashtags included in your posts as well.
Okay, that's good. So like in the body of the post itself, you would use that language if I was going to search, Christian recovery in Connecticut where you are, or I'm in Arkansas, Christian recovery in Arkansas. That would be a part of the body of the post itself that I'm typing in there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is. And one of the tricks that I like to use is underneath what I've actually said and all the important information, I'll do a period, enter period. So you're doing like a dotted line down. and then I put the hashtags underneath because I want them to show up, but I don't want somebody to necessarily click on them if they're already there because it'll take them to other recovery
Oh,
posts.
gotcha.
So it's one of those ways to be found, but it's not necessary for the people who are looking at that post at that moment.
Gotcha. So this may be taking us on a trail you don't want to go, but just my brain is spinning. I'm really loving this conversation. But so story, just thinking of Instagram and now Facebook is actually using story as well. Story versus post. Is there anything that is more attractive to that world, or is it you just need both? And are there different strategies with story versus a regular post with that SEO language you're talking about?
So, Roddy, you're asking the best questions, and we didn't even plan this. I'm so excited that you have asked this. So, I don't know the formal statistic to date, but it was about a year ago, the last time I looked up this statistic, and I figured it was close enough. I didn't need to follow it. It's about 47%, 49% of people who just view stories.
Oh, wow.
And the other, almost half just go through, your wall or posts. So you really are kind of split down the middle. So if you're only doing one, you're only reaching 50%
Mm,
potential.
wow.
So it's important to do both. And the nice thing about Meta Business Suite is it allows you to schedule, as long as your pages are linked, schedule your posts on Instagram and Facebook, your stories on Instagram and Facebook at the same time.
Mm,
So you can plan out a month's worth of content or a week's worth of content once, take a couple of hours, and you're in stories, you are in the posts. Now, I will say Instagram, actually doing it from the app, you have a few more features like adding different music to it.
mm.
You can still add links and hashtags inside of Meta Business. So for stories, if you're wanting to kind of experiment and see which works better for your audience, just kind of do one each, one in Meta Business, one in the Instagram app. But yes, you can use the hashtags, you can tag other people. It makes it very easy to be found.
That's good. So, is there such a thing? Um, Again, my brain's just spinning, but is there such thing as too wordy, even on an image? Right? If I'm posting an image, what's too much, or is that even a thing on a post versus a story? And is the image the better thing, the video itself speaking for itself, or what's too much word for them to read? Are they going to take the time to read it? And just thinking about email worlds, like if it's too long, they're probably not going to read it. But how does that translate to the social media world?
Yeah, so even though the time or the audience is kind of split between the two, um, it's kind of two different purposes. So your actual posts, you can have more of the copy around it. So our upcoming meeting is, as you mentioned, on Wednesday, and we're doing lesson, let me check my notes, 16
Yeah, we're on that one
on.
too. Amends, right?
Yes. And so in the actual post, there's kind of like a little devotional with the acrostic and why it's important and blah, 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 blah. All very important things. And then
It's a healthy
the
blah,
picture,
blah, blah.
healthy, very healthy, blah, blah, blah. The picture that we have it- in quote, brain is dying. Apparently, this is information overload. The picture contains just really the information that they absolutely need to know. The address of where it's happening, the
Mm,
lesson that it is, a picture of somebody kind of holding their hands together saying sorry. So you kind of quickly get what amends means if you're new to the,
yeah.
verbiage and time. So I have that in the post, but in the story, I literally just have the picture because you very quickly see what it is. And I've tagged our location because stories kind of happen quickly.
Mm,
They disappear after 24 hours. So it's just kind of a quick hit. So whatever information you just really need them to come away with, make sure that that's on the graphic. that you end up posting, and then try not to go, like you said, short attention spans, especially with stories. It's tap, 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 and now you've gone through. So keep it short and sweet on stories, but definitely go a little bit longer in your posts.
I love that. Awesome. Well, yeah. Any thoughts that jump out? You just jump in. Don't feel like you got to follow my questions, because my questions may not always be worth answering. But if something comes to
Great
mind,
so far, Rodney. You're doing great. It's like you've done this before.
oh, I need to just take you on every podcast just to make myself feel better. So. Hey, friends, if you're looking for another online meeting option, we've got a Celebrate Recovery Global Open Share meeting. Meets every Wednesday at noon Pacific. We meet from just about a little over an hour. We have a mini Moni, a testimony, a devotional, and then we break up into gender-specific groups. If you'd like to be a part of that, you're looking for an additional meeting, go to celebraterecovery.com and join us this week. We'd love to have you. Celebraterecovery.com for more information. Well, anything else on that before I move to the next thought? Anything you want to add to that?
I would just say, one of the things that we haven't specifically done at my CR, but we do at the church. Our church really strongly promotes our Celebrate Recovery. So we haven't spent the money to do this, but you also can advertise on Facebook and Instagram. So definitely look into that. You can do things like boost your posts, or you can actually physically do an ad, and that's the minimum of $5 a day. So you can spend anywhere from $1 to $5 and just target people who are looking for recovery, an age range, a mileage range, those types of things. You can get your Celebrate Recovery out pretty inexpensively. And then kind of a sleeper hit that's been for our church is using GPS apps like Waze. We are in a super prominent location. We have something like 10,000 people who drive by every day because we're at an intersection for two different highways. And Waze captures all of that. So we can see not like their name, their number, or whatnot, but we have ads that pop up for the church. So when they're stopped at that stoplight that's right in front of our church, they see our ad, they see what we're about. And so you can do the same thing with your Celebrate Recovery, especially if you have something that sets you apart. You're unique. So for us, we're the only CR in Connecticut that has a veterans group, a welcome home group. So that's something that you could promote, or if you have a prison ministry, or if you have a really strong mental health program and mental health ambassadors, don't be afraid to use social media to leverage that as an advertising point.
I love that. So you brought up an interesting thought. I mean, promoting things that people, we have Welcome Home Group, and it's the only one in the area. How much do you, because we kind of have an inner language, right? I mean, in Celebrate Recovery, it's like if I know nothing about Celebrate Recovery, welcome home. What is that? He's been working all day and now he's welcomed home. I don't know what it is. So how much do you, what does that look like as far as trying to communicate what we mean by welcome home, or what we mean by celebration place, or mental health ambassador, or whatever the topic may be? What does that look like from your view, your brain, as you're trying to get the word out about Celebrate Recovery?
And that is so important. One of the things that we recognized in RCR is that we were very inward facing. So we all know the language. We all know, what to expect, even down to our chip night. We always would start with the blue chip. And someone had said, hey, let's think about the newcomer. You're having them go up first and they're not really sure. So we actually put the blue chip last so that they can see what people do and if they really are, qualifying for that blue chip. So taking that lens, there is some CR language that we've stripped from our opening and from our outward communication. So we have a pamphlet that doesn't say welcome home, it says veterans group,
Mm.
because that is what it is. And inside of it, there is some language that explains what that is. So when they walk in the door and somebody says, our welcome home group is down the hallway in classroom 5 o'clock across from the ladies' room, they'll know that, oh, that's what they mean. I was looking for the veterans group. I didn't know. So,
Wow.
yeah, we really do kind of have two sets of information that we have, again, not shifting from the DNA,
Right.
but making sure that my favorite TV show is The Office, and it's KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Great advice, feelings every time. You know, that's what you have to do. Get people in the door, and they should understand what they're walking into.
I love that. Yeah, and you said it, but I just want to affirm that you're not breaking the DNA by doing that. And I love that you're honoring kind of what we do, but explaining it in a way that makes sense to our first time visitors. You said Waze. Is it WAYZ or S?
WAZE.
WAZE. Okay. So that is a platform for advertisement. Is that what it is? Okay.
It is.
I just want to make sure that I caught that. If people are, it's like, I want to check that out. So Waze. And then I was going to ask this. Oh, go ahead. You had another thought.
Yeah, and so Waze isn't just an advertising platform. It's a GPS. So kind of like Google Maps, Apple Maps. You're like, hey, I need to get to the grocery store, and Connecticut, everything is under construction. So I put GPS into everywhere, and so as they're going to their destinations, businesses will advertise. So as they pass, it's
Ah,
geolocated.
oh, I love that. And is that something you do through that same platform, or it's a separate thing?
It's a totally separate thing. If they just go to waze.com and look for their advertising package, they had shut down for a while, but they actually are back up and running. And the nice thing is it works within the Google ecosystem. It uses AdWords and all of like that fancy, thing. But again, it's a smaller budget, so you could spend a couple dollars a day to advertise to people who are already driving by your area.
Hmm.
And because it works with Google and the Google ecosystem, it kind of opens the door for more SEO and different types of advertising on Google, which could be a whole nother 4 month long series. Let me keep talking.
Yeah, I love it. That you're getting my wheels spinning. So video versus photos. I mean, I know we have reels. We're in a reels world now, the reels world. Um, what what's more effective? Is an image by itself better, or a reel, or a video that you make of a talking head? I mean, what, or a voiceover? I'm just kind of curious what your expertise on that is.
So the overall answer is video is king.
Okay.
However, always be experimenting. So, yes, video is king, and we can talk about some of the tools that I use to create our content, and that will kind of segue into this or from that. So, video is always king, and you can create images and turn them into videos in about 12 seconds. So, you can take those static images. So, video is always king. The algorithms absolutely honor reels and that type of a thing. That having been said, sometimes text only on Instagram perform really well. So just kind of do everything and see what works for your particular audience. If you have an older audience, reels are probably not going to be their thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to just be in the feeds looking at individual posts. But you should have reels because you want to grow your ministry, you
Yeah,
want to expand generations, and that's where you're going to reach those people really more than you would in the post feed. So, video definitely first, but keep a combination of things.
I love that. Okay, that's good. That's good to think about ministering to the older generation, but also trying to look back to get the younger generation in. So you kind of have to be creative in how you're reaching them. And let me say this: because I can remember years ago, I was the national assimilation coach. I don't know if you knew that, but I used to be the A of, we've since changed it to ambassador now, but I remember having conversations with a couple people. Maybe you can speak into this, that promotion marketing feels like a dirty word, right? It's with ministry, it shouldn't be promotion. It shouldn't be marketing. I wonder if you could speak on that, because you are in ministry, you're in the thick of it. You obviously believe in Celebrate Recovery. What would you say to someone that says marketing and promotion bad, to encourage them to maybe give them yeah, take a blue chip, right?
So I would try to say this as lovingly as possible. Is evangelism bad? Because what is evangelism if not marketing? You are telling somebody who doesn't know about the product that you have. And the product is salvation and Jesus and life-changing an experience, a life-altering destination, right? And evangelism is another fancy term for marketing. And that's what we're doing. We are evangelizing Celebrate Recovery. We are evangelizing healing. We are being missionaries in a digital footprint. So while we can't show up at these people's houses, our message about freedom and forgiveness and removing bondages and chains can go forth using a media that is where they are. So it's really just a fancier worldly term of evangelism, I'll say. So I definitely don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as a compliment and a mandate from God. We're evangelizing.
Well, I totally agree, and didn't expect a different answer, but I think it's good for our listeners, especially if they're wrestling with that. Why wouldn't we shout from the rooftops?
Absolutely. And, another kind of jumping back to AI that we were talking about earlier, because it's so new, because it's unknown, it's kind of having the same conversation that marketing was having. Well, isn't marketing bad because it's not a business, not this, that, or the other thing? AI is a great tool to use. And how I was able to have that conversation with my senior leadership at the church was last year we were doing a whole church-wide study called Unite Our Hearts. And it was all about prayer, and we recorded videos, and there was like a half-hour instruction, and there was a booklet and devotionals and everything that went along with it. And so there is a program called Hey Jen, and it's an AI program. And what we did is we took our 60-something-year-old white Italian pastor from Middletown, Connecticut, and uploaded that video into AI, and kind of scary, but kind of awesome, replicated his voice, translated the entire thing into Spanish, even down to the editing of his mouth. So I described him the way I did for a reason. It was like he was fluent in Spanish. It flowed. We were able to offer this to our Spanish-speaking community inside of our church using AI. And so how can taking God's word, and we didn't have a translator, we didn't have the software to have it all recorded or do voiceovers. It took about an hour or two for AI to process it, and now we were able to reach a community that we weren't able to reach before. So it is such a powerful tool if you allow it to be.
Wow. We're going to wrap up that episode. So much good stuff. Next episode, we're going to kind of get into some ways to kind of level up our ministry and some tools that we can use creatively to get the word out as we focus on outreach and some real practical ways that we can help make our lives easier as we get the word out about Celebrate Recovery. Hey, thanks so much for being with me today. I hope that this is blessing your heart and give you some things to think about as you're thinking about getting the word out about your ministry. As always, want to say thanks for joining me on this podcast, and I pray that you'll join me next time. Until then, God bless you. Have a wonderful week.